Yeah. There we are. We are running live. Cameras are live.
Remember, you have to do it on mute too, so they can hear you now on YouTube, but muted. Right there.
All right. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. AZMT 3.0, ArizonaMixtapes.com. My name is Swerve36. This is The Mission. As we are tapping in, let me get the show going, get everything, get all my sharing and everything upwards and mobile like that. Let me get so I can see what we're seeing, see what we're looking at as we look out here. I won't be looking at y'all's beautiful faces tonight. I'll try to get the profile so y'all can see me out there. Thanks to everybody out there checking out the show, all the supporters, all the artists that have been waiting patiently for The Mission to come back live on air. And here we are. Here we are at the beautiful Arizona Mixtape Studios. ArizonaMixtapes.com is where you can check the show. Facebook Live is where you can check the show. YouTube of ArizonaMixtapes.com as well. Let's see where we're going to share this to. Share this to Lee Kirby right now, and then we can get it moving around the internet. How are y'all doing tonight? Thank you so much as y'all come into the show. Thanks to Kid K. Thanks to Queen D. Uncle Charlie. Steve, everybody over here at AZMT making me feel so comfortable. We got a big guest tonight. I can't wait to talk to him. We'll get into him in a minute as we discuss the issues of the day. A little opening monologue to get the show started. Looks like we're a little... Should we bring this down a little bit? Maybe I'm a little loud. Maybe move my mic away a little bit. All right, there we go. Here on The Mission, Swerve 360, back again. Now, we're not going to waste any time with negativity. We're not going to waste any time with politics. I wish everybody a lot of love out there, to the people I've worked with in the past, to the people I continue to work with. We're going to flood this stream with love and support for Arizona artists, brands, music, mixtapes, artists, creatives, movie makers. Tonight, we have a gentleman I've been looking forward to talking to for several months now. I reached out to him back when the first season of The Mission was in effect, and he said he would reach out to me when he has something to promote, and the time is now. The time is now. So we have JARON IKNER on the show tonight. Movie maker, movie producer, movie writer, movie director. And he can correct me if I'm wrong about any of that. Please don't forget to put on your headphones and turn your mic on wherever you feel comfortable, Mr. IKNER. It's my honor, my pleasure to have him here tonight, a man that has created a movie, a motion picture, a sci-fi thriller out of his own mind. He has created a universe, if you will. And we'll talk more into that in just 1 second. JARON IKNER, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
What is up? Big Lee Kirby having me on the show, man. I appreciate you, man.
All right, let me make sure your mic is up and working. Good. Give us a check one time.
Yo, what up?
Okay, you're good. You're good. I'm just making it's our first show here at AZMT.
No, you're good.
And in respect to you as an artist, I want to make sure everything comes off crisp and clean and clear. How are you doing tonight?
I am feeling fantastic. Life is good right now. Life is beautiful.
Good. It should be. Now, can I say, I'm not going to guarantee you that I won't ask a weird or a tough question. If I do, pardon me, it's probably out of ignorance and not disrespect.
Okay.
I'm very old, I'm medicated, and I'm dyslexic. So, I have my issues.
I'm all about it. I'm going on an interview run right now. I've done like 7 interviews over the last 2 weeks.
Incredible.
And they all ask the same questions.
Incredible.
So,
well, we're not going to do that, I'm sure. We might ask a few of the same, maybe not. Thank you, Kid K.
Not knocking all the
before you take that away, could I get into that, Kid K? Would you like I've got 2 sodas, I've got a couple Trulies, and I've got a couple Michelob Lights. Would you prefer one of those?
I'll take a soda.
That's right. Well,
a soda sounds dope.
Would you like Sprite or Dr. Pepper?
Sprite.
Okay, I'll take the Dr.
Hip-hop,
Pepper. I appreciate you rolling with the child, not partaking in the alcoholic beverages. That's a lot of respect.
Yeah, I don't really drink that much. Okay. Yeah, my wife is actually sober for 5 years, so.
Congratulations to her.
Yeah.
My wife is a heavy drinker, and I'm a heavy smoker. Together, we are smoking water.
I smoke tough. So.
Okay. All right. Well, good. We can share that.
Good.
Now, I of course, we're here to talk about the movie, but I would be remiss if I didn't kind of start at the beginning. just because I've never met you before. This is our first time actually speaking to each other, and I've been listening to your music as well. So I'm curious about some of that as well. If we could just briefly talk about your the start and the music, I'll ask you some questions, and then we'll get into the movie and talk about that a lot. I promise.
Let's do it.
Is that cool?
I'm with it.
Okay, where did you grow up at?
So I'm actually a military brat. My father was stationed in Colorado Springs, is where I was born. He passed away when I was 8 years old.
Okay, sorry.
During that time, I lived in Louisiana, Seattle, and then ended up in California. That's where he passed away. That caused my mom to move to Tucson, Arizona. Okay. And that's where I grew up.
You've been here. That's where you experience life mostly.
That's where I laid my flag.
Right. Okay. Cool. Tucson. I thought I knew that. I was just verifying as we move on. What do you remember your first big influence in music being?
First big influence, honestly, would probably be my sister.
Okay.
At the time, before my father died, she was actually really into rock and roll music.
Okay.
So she's 7 years older than me. I'm 38. So she was listening to like Skid Row and like Bon Jovi and all these people.
There was a time
and
for
she
that.
had the posters and all on the wall, and she was all about that. And that was my first like real like, oh, what is this about? I listened to music before, but I didn't quite understand it. But that was the first time I saw the connection between a person and music. Sure. Like that.
Right.
Trying to like understand all that.
It's usually an uncle, a father, or a family member sometimes, but I appreciate that. Your sister.
Yeah.
My friend Kevin, his sister turned me on to hip hop, which is, just an odd coincidence. What convinced you to take music so seriously? Because I can tell listening to your music, it's very diverse. You had dance music songs. You had boom bap rap songs, which I'm, of course, older. I'm more a fan of boom bap, but to experimental new age kind of rap songs, a few, and I just put on the Spotify and let it go without, and I went all over the world. I feel like with Black One and JARON IKNER. What do you think drove you to make so much different kinds of music? Most people don't do that. They're very focused in one area.
Right. So, my father actually, when he passed away, that's when I actually discovered creating music as a form of solace and a way to release emotions and all that. So my early music that I made was on some emo, depressive stuff, especially with the rock influence in my life and all that. Sure. And so when I got into high school, I went to Mountain View High School. There were 20 black kids at the school. We all hung out together at lunch. They used to rap battle at lunch and start battling people.
The good old days.
The good old days, right? And so over time, eventually they would start rap battling me and start dissing me, like, you're skinny motherfucker, type stuff. Right. And so me, being the competitive person that I am, I started writing bars in fourth hour, and then I would start battling back. Eventually, that kind of turned into us forming a crew, and we started rapping, doing shows at lunchtime, talent shows, all that stuff. I wouldn't say until I graduated, I actually hit the scene pretty tough. Actually, was a drum and bass MC for a while. Mm-hmm. So that kind of explains the diverse background. One of my best friends, Tyler Disney, he's a drum and bass DJ, and I emceed for all his sets. Mm-hmm. So I'm playing underground raves, festivals, all this stuff. Eventually we landed at Vaudeville Cabaret, and we were doing a drum and bass night there. And the owner was like, hey, I'm looking for hip hop. I'm like, well, I kind of dabble in that. I've been working on hip hop music. I would love to start putting together shows. That started the Chronicle series. To this day, Chronicles is the longest running hip hop night in Tucson. Did that for like 500 shows over the course of 10 years. Wow. Both artists from all over the country. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I really got into like the Tucson hip hop scene, developing artists, putting together showcases, and kind of just really putting all my all into the Tucson hip hop scene. So like around age 20, that's when I started taking things seriously. Mm-hmm. Around 27, my child came into the picture. I had created the child with his mom in Phoenix, so I had to make a decision. It's actually kind of funny because the same day that I found out about Josiah, I actually signed a record contract with a UK record label called Expat Records. Mm-hmm. They wanted to distribute my first album called Black Sun Rising. I get home, I'm all excited. I get a phone call, you're having a kid. So they wanted to put me on tour. So I was basically had to make a decision between going on tour or coming up here to be a father. I chose to come up here, be a father. Mm-hmm. We still dropped the album. And the rest from there is kind of a different story. But that's kind of like when things kind of became serious for me, where it's like, all right, this is what I want to do for a living. This is not a side hobby or like moonlighting as a rapper and doing these shows. This is my passion. This is what I want to do. But I call myself a multimedia artist, more than a rapper or a filmmaker, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, I apologize. It's hard to fit your resume onto a flyer.
Right.
You know.
No.
Yeah.
And that's why I came up with the term. Okay. And for me, a multimedia artist is just a fancy way of being a storyteller, which is what I love to do. And at the end of it all, I'm a storyteller. I used to write stories as a kid, make my own comic books, make my own films, et cetera, so forth. And it all comes back to that. Just finding new and inventive ways to tell stories. And so over the last, I'm 38. Around the time I turned 30, I tried to figure out ways to monetize this. You know what I'm saying? How to make a profit off of this, doing podcasts, making music, really getting into publishing, all that stuff. And then, been grinding ever since. Now the company is doing very well, but we branched out into real estate and nonprofits and stuff like that.
Well, that's a big move, and salute for that, to take music income, creative income, and turn it into real estate income and other branches is a huge thing to do. So respect for that. You're a very creative person. I don't need to tell you that. You know that. When did you figure out you were different from a lot of other people? Do you maybe I'm assuming that as a creative, sometimes I feel different than a lot of my friends growing up, family members a lot of times maybe didn't understand me. And I think it really just comes down to being a creative mind and thinking differently about life than maybe some other people do. Do you agree? Or
Sure.
When did you figure out or start to figure out that maybe, watching Sunday football every week wasn't your thing, or, and maybe...
No, that's a great question. I appreciate the good question.
Okay.
Think about that for a second.
Okay, sure.
Honestly,
take your time.
When it comes down to, I think my father's influence really told me that I was special. And part of the reason why my brand is called Starstruck is the fact that my father, he told me I could be whatever I wanted as a kid. When I was 6 or 7 years old, I was like, I want to be an astronaut. And he's like, go be a damn astronaut.
It's a beautiful thing.
Go do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. So after a while, I started to try to figure out how to be an astronaut. Then after he passed, I kind of went away a little bit, right? But his influence, like the ability to just tell me to go do whatever that I wanted to, kind of was pushing me in directions to make me realize that I can create whatever world I want. And this is something I'm still like coming into terms with, even at 38 years old.
Sure.
Where it's like the world, and I talk about this a lot on Facebook. I have a big ego and all this stuff, but I really believe that you can create whatever world or reality that you want.
We'll get to your social media presence in a little while. You do have one of the bigger social media presence in the AZ Facebook scene, if it will. You have a huge affection, admiration. I have to assume for Kanye West.
Sure. Yeah.
Is it the straight creative energy that draws you to him? Is it the talk of being the modern Walt Disney? Is that why is he such a big role model to you? Speak to that.
Okay, so when my father passed, it's all attached. I got daddy issues, clearly. Obviously.
Hey, I get it. My father just died a few years ago, and I've had father issues as well.
Right.
So
I realized, and this is something once again I realized in hindsight, I was searching for role models. Right. And at the time, my family is mostly women. My uncles are out there doing their thing. My brothers, I didn't have a lot of male role models. So when I turn on MTV and I see Puff Daddy dancing in the shiny suit, you know what I'm saying, doing this and that, I was like, I want to do that. I want to be like Puff Daddy. Right. So during my teenage years, I wanted to be Puff Daddy.
Interesting.
That was my guy. And I bought all the albums. Bad Boy was my clique. That was just my squad. So, but then when Kanye West came out and he dropped the College Dropout, literally that same year I had dropped out of college. Like I had.
Okay. That's a relation.
Yeah.
Right there.
I had because in my family, education it's all about education in my family. My brother's a doctor in higher education. My sister's a doctor in microbiology. Wow. So there's a lot of intelligence in my family.
Are they both older than you?
Yes.
So you're the baby?
I'm the baby.
Okay. Me too as well.
And so there was a lot of pressure to go to school. But at the time, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to go to school for at 18 years old. But I went, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to take these general ed classes and smoke a bunch of weed and party, which is what I did. Eventually, I dropped out. That same year, Kanye dropped the College Dropout. And so to me, I was like, who's this guy dropping this album? And the album to me was incredible. And
we all loved it. Any hip hop fan.
And so following that story and reading his articles and his interviews and the confidence that he had, that same confidence that my father instilled in me was the confidence that I saw in those interviews. Where I was like, man, like this guy gets it. He understands that he can do whatever the hell he wants as long as he pushes for it. And so he's always been like, he's my biggest inspiration. I joke around and say that I graduated from the school of Kanye West. But my soulmate or my spirit animal was Donald Glover.
Okay.
Childish Gambino.
I got it.
But which is
maybe the right. Yeah. Maybe he's the evolution.
Exactly.
A lot of times in hip hop, you see the family tree.
Exactly.
And Childish Gambino obviously seems like the evolution coming down the line from a Kanye.
And so I kind of follow his blueprint these days because Kanye's on some wild stuff right now, and he's older. He's a billionaire. I can't relate with him as much.
Right. He's got different things going on for sure.
Exactly.
What are your, as far as being so inspired? Kanye's an inspiration. How do you feel when he has weird or awkward moments, whether it's Trump or whether it's, I feel a lot of his awkward moments maybe are the media making a big deal out of him to try to sell a story. I'm not going to put it all on him, but Kanye has had some awkward moments. As a fan, is there any time where he made you cringe, I guess is what I'm asking.
Of course. But I think about a tweet he made. I don't even know when it was, but it stuck with me ever since he said it. And he says, I'm living life out. I'm learning out loud. I'm living in real time. I don't have you guys see my mistakes and everything that I do in real time because of who I am and with the position that I'm in.
Yeah.
And so, if I mess up, it's a big deal. But at the same time, I will grow from it and learn from it. And that's kind of how I feel. It's like, oftentimes, I think a lot of artists get held back or they feel like, they're not crossing that threshold because of how the world perceives them, right? They're afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of messing up. And it's like, let's put it out there, man. We're all humans. We're all just balls of meat floating on a rock right now, trying to figure this shit out. No one has the answers.
That's true.
So just do it. Worst case scenario, you fail, someone laughs at you. Oh, well, keep it moving.
Right. Well, if we know anything about trying to do something in the modern era, you have to have thick skin, no matter what it is.
Absolutely.
You want to be a rapper, you want to throw a flyer out. People will pick you the fuck apart if the flyer is not, if it's, And
I've dealt with that before. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, we've all either made or seen a flyer that didn't, that
my first rap beef was over a bad flyer that we made.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You come from Tucson and your music. I know you probably live in Phoenix now, but there's to me, and I've only been here 4 years, but in my experience, my young experience, it seems like Tucson may have a little bit of chip on his shoulder for not being recognized or maybe not being given attention to, and not that it's their fault. Seems like maybe they just have something they feel like they need to prove to the Arizona, to the hip hop world. Do you think that's an issue? Is there any Tucson versus Phoenix kind of feel?
I would say that existed 10 years ago, but as among others, built that bridge to where that's not the case anymore.
Okay.
And honestly, Tucson doesn't give a fuck. And when it comes down to is Tucson, and this is just me being me, talking the shit that I do, is a better scene per capita and more unified with better artists.
Wouldn't be hard to be more unified. Right. I would say
it's smaller, right?
Well, no, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of drama in the AZ scene, and there's a lot of politics, unnecessary. I think most of it, from what I've seen and from what I've experienced, most of it is unnecessary and it made to be a lot bigger than it really is. But we all are artists. We all are creatives. No matter how tough we portray ourselves, most of us are a little sensitive about our art.
Sure.
So I think that comes out in weird ways, especially when so-called gangsters aren't supposed to be sensitive at all. So it's weird when those type of artists become sensitive about their art. But we won't get into that. So Tucson, to me, is very interesting because I do feel like it has a freedom of being its own world. The names of the artists are different. They're a little out there. It seems like they're doing their own thing, maybe much like Buffalo is doing its own thing from New York, even though it's in that style, but they're kind of, they're their own thing because of the distance. I don't know.
When I started back in the day, I sound like an old head saying that, back in my day, there was literally no place to do hip hop in Tucson. Right. The shows that we were doing were the only places to do hip hop. And I'm not trying to put this all on my back, but many people in Tucson will vouch for me. I was one of the only people supporting the Tucson hip hop scene in its growing years.
Yeah.
There's other people out there too, so I don't know what the camera's at, but don't trip on
Right.
that.
It's not just you,
Not
but
just
you were a
me, but
major player.
I was
You were obviously
pioneer
a
of
major
that.
player.
And
Right.
seeing it now, there's so much community and there's so many flagship champions down there that are supported. And that's really what it comes down to, is having those artists that when you hear their music and you see their work and you see their grind, you just believe in them, you root for them. And that's really the philosophy behind Starstruck when we first started. When Starstruck first started, it was actually a collective of artists that I handpicked, and I saw that light in them. I was like, hey, you know what? I think that you're destined to be great. And the vast majority of these artists that I brought into Starstruck have gone on to great things. Basically, just by me supporting them and being like, hey, you guys are dope.
Right.
Sharing their posts on Facebook, buying tickets to their shows. You know what I'm saying? They'll call me in for advice, and I'll be like, yo, go do that. Right. So that's really what it's coming down to when it comes to Tucson. Tucson's full of champions. And because of the small amount of the size of the city, those champions can all work together and really blow up. Not saying that Phoenix doesn't have that, but there's a lot of competition out here.
Yeah. Is it because of the size of, basically you're saying it's because of the size of Phoenix? Because I know I come from Richmond, Virginia, and we're definitely nowhere near the size of city that Phoenix is. And I feel it's the same way. The artists, you know, there was a day when they had that competitive, forget everybody else, it's my time thing. But over the last 10 years, the city, Richmond, where I come from, has really come together, and a lot of people are benefiting from that.
Sure.
And I'm glad that that's happening in Tucson. I wish it could happen in Phoenix, but we'll see. Right now, it's still a lot going on for that, you know.
I'll tell you my trifecta theory. And what that is basically that any good scene, when I say scene, I mean entertainment-wise, has three main components that are successful.
Okay.
A great sports team,
yes,
a great film community, and a great music community.
Right, okay.
And so if you look at L.A., Atlanta, New York, they have all those things. Phoenix has all the elements for that, right? But, you know, Suns just got washed. Cardinals are doing the Cardinals thing.
Right.
Our hip-hop scene cannot figure out who our champions are to support and push up. Because anybody who does start to rise, we start hating, right?
Sure.
Nah, it should be somebody else, right?
Right.
So, and then we look at the film community, which is like basically non-existent because our film community, our government out here doesn't want to have tax incentives. We actually just lost a major project out here, sponsored by or produced by J.J. Abrams, his TV show that he was doing.
Okay.
In Tucson, being shot in Tucson. They shot the first season there, but they pulled it and took it to New Mexico because we don't have tax incentives.
Right.
So I
Very
look
important.
at all these different factors, right? And I'm like, this is why we're not where we want to be as Arizona as a place to go, because those factors just are all fucked up. And so me being the person that I am, I try to move and all. I don't ball obviously, but I try to do what I can, right? Being a creative, having the clout that I have, quote unquote, having the strong voice that I have. I'm trying to look forward and see how do we get to that point.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad somebody's thinking about it. I think about it. I'm not much of an influence, so hopefully you can move that forward.
If you want to influence, I wouldn't be here, man.
Well, hey,
I'm not just giving out random interviews.
I appreciate you saying that. That'll go into the clips. We'll definitely mark that one for the clips. Chop that up for the clips. Yeah,
that's a hot TikTok for you right now.
To get into the movies, I want to start with this before I forget this question because it's an important one to me.
Absolutely.
My wife's ex-husband passed from cancer. I had a problematic relationship with my father for a lot of my life, and he passed about 8 years ago.
Okay.
It seems like for a while we couldn't watch a series or a major motion movie without those issues being dealt with. It seems like to me, I'm no movie guy. I just watch them. I'm no skeptic. I'm no critic. I'm certainly not a movie maker or an actor. But it seems like that is a cheap way to get to my emotions when I'm watching a movie. If to bring up the cancer, the big C, or the problematic family relationships. Because this day and age, we've pretty much all been touched by cancer in some way, and a lot of us have had some type of traumatic issue with their family, whether it's being problematic living with them or losing them. Am I wrong? Is that like the cheat code for getting to my emotions when you're making a movie?
I'll take what you said and kind of expand upon that.
Thank you.
And you can kind of surmise from that. One of my main goals as a filmmaker is to avoid stories that focus on trauma, particularly black pain. So, Boys in the Hood movies, things like that. Sob stories that are about people just dying, without any real substance. Because once again, I'm a storyteller, and I believe in that the story is everything. And so, and this is, I'm a film student, so I took a bunch of story theory classes, but stories are literally like the most important thing in human civilization because they educate, they inspire, they make you feel something, et cetera, so forth. So when you bring that up, the reason why those stories affect you so much is because of the personal attachment to it, right? Someone who didn't have anybody with cancer in their life, et cetera, so forth, would probably be like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, right? But what's interesting that you say that is because you feel that, and this might get a little bit psychological here on you for a second.
Sure, feel free. I need it. It's free.
Right.
Yeah.
You might feel that you're seeing that a lot in media because you haven't faced your trauma on that.
And maybe I'm a narcissist, so I tend to think everything's about me.
No, not necessarily.
My wife at one time.
It's just
every
that,
now
like, if it's almost like the car theory, right? When you buy a car,
right? You start seeing them, because, and you never noticed them before because you didn't have one.
Exactly. So your father passes some cancer. Now you're noticing all these cancer stories popping up.
Right. It's my perspective is what you're saying.
And that's that trauma that's kind of resurfacing.
No, I'll take that honestly. That's that's light work. I'll take that honestly. All right. So now as we're easing into the movie segment of the show, there's no formal education really for hip hop. At this point, it might be. My whole life, it hadn't been. You can't go to school. At least, like I said, for most of my life, you couldn't go to school and learn hip-hop slang or how to make a beat or how to write a rap. Most of us learned this on our own, trial and error.
Sure.
You alluded to the fact that you've had some formal education for movie making?
Yes, I went to Scottsdale Film and Theater.
Okay.
Yeah, I went there for 5 years, took all the classes there.
Okay. Because I just want to talk about, and is the Bond, we're talking about The Bond, that's your new release. You're traveling around talking about it. It's been entered into festivals, and you've even won some of these, or at least one of these competitions.
We've won 2 so far.
Two so far. Incredible work.
Thank you.
Is this your first movie you've made?
Yes. So The Bond basically was never supposed to happen. And I'm pretty sure God had beef with me because I finished the movie because he sure as hell tried to stop me from making this film. So when the pandemic hit, well, let me back up a little bit. I graduate from film school. Film school loves me because I'm taking all their classes. I'm a stellar student. I graduate with top of the class. They're like, hey, we have this special projects program. You can come back to the school, use our equipment. We'll support you. We got your back. We want to make, basically with Scottsdale Film and Theater, their biggest graduate is David Spade.
Okay.
And they're like, we want another David Spade. We want someone to graduate and just blow up so we can say that we claimed you.
Right.
Bet. All right. So I wrote this movie called Magenta, which I'm working on now.
I've seen the talk. I watch your socials.
And so with Magenta, we were getting the ball rolling. We had cast, we had script, we had everything, all the pre-production ready to go. And literally about 2 weeks before we started shooting, the pandemic was in full effect, and the school was like, "No, we're shutting down. So we're not shooting this movie." So I was like, all right, well, that sucks because I don't have access to all this awesome equipment. And then, Trump started handing out money. He's like, yo, here's some free money. sit at your home and
right. Don't go anywhere. Here's some money.
Right. So I was like, well, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to buy my camera. I'm buy camera equipment. So I bought a Blackmagic 6K and all the fixins. And I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to start shooting short films all summer so I can learn how to use this camera. I shot 3 before I shot the short. So there's a short film version of The Bond.
Okay.
That's existing on my computer that will probably never see the light of day. I shouldn't say that. Maybe one day I'll drop it. But
when you get paid for the DVD release or whatever that is in the future, it's always good for the extras.
It might be on there. But so we shot this short film, which is a very, 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 very loose concept of what the movie ended up being. Ash Bridges, who's the star of the film, he's a martial artist and a stunt choreographer. Okay. So he was like, yo, I want to make an action film where I fight dudes. I'm like, all right, so we'll do this little thing on the side of the street. I found this location behind some train tracks behind downtown, somewhere downtown Phoenix. And, we shot this little movie and they're like, oh, this movie's sick. You should make this into a full film. And I'm like, maybe. So I cut a trailer and I put the trailer out and I was like, hey guys, I want to make a full movie out of this. And it just went crazy. Like all my fans and all my supporters, like, yo, I want to see this. So I put up the GoFundMe, and like all this money started coming in, and I'm like, oh shit, I guess
I got to do it.
I guess we got to make this movie now. But there was no script, So I was like, all right. So
this process, if I'm like I said, I'm a novice, but so this process kind of happened in reverse, if you will.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Usually you start with the idea, you start with a full script, and then you get funding or whatever. But so you're knee deep in this without even realizing what was going to happen. Right.
So the pressure was on. At this point, we had raised like $3,000. So I was like, all right, let me go ahead and write the script. So I wrote the script in 10 days. And I was like, I just locked in, wrote the script in 10 days, and then we started shooting. My lead female at the time, I'm going to try and make sure this is right. She was incapacitated. I'm making sure that she has a kid now, but I don't want to think she was pregnant at the time. But for whatever reason, she couldn't be a part of the film. Mm-hmm. So I had a major problem because I lost my lead female. I made a post on Facebook. I was like, yo, I need a female that does fighting. The homie Daniel Miller tagged Jasmine Berber, and she came onto the set. And really, that was like the game changer for the whole film. Mm-hmm. Because what ended up happening was that we started to get knee deep into the script. We're shooting this movie. And about a third of the way through, I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, the story is not working. I feel like the characters don't have the motivation. I'm just losing the spark there. Mm-hmm. And so I had a conversation with Jasmine, and I was like, how do you feel about your character? And she's like, I think my character's kind of dumb. And I'm like, explain, elaborate. Why is she doing this? Why is she doing that? Why am I fighting for it? Like, why am I doing? She had all these questions for me, and she's like, well, I should be doing this. And she asked me a critical question. Don't give away a spoiler, but that question that she asked me changed the whole movie. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I was like, fuck, you're right. We got to reshoot some scenes, and now we're going off script. So at that point, we went off script. So that, like,
which is scary. As a novice, I just want to say, to my understanding, that's scary when you have a budget. That's scary when you have a big budget. That's what people argue about is going on. You know.
So we went. So I would say a good 60% of this movie was off the dome, in the sense that I was like, this is the scenes we need to shoot the next day. This is how we're going to do it. Wow. You guys know the roles. You know what you're supposed to be doing. So I'm going to go on set. This is how the scene starts. This is how the scene ends. Let's talk about how we're going to get to those mm-hmm. 2 points. So a lot of the movie is improv, based off of moments from the script.
Sure. Led improv.
Led, yeah, exactly. And so I would never do that again, because that was very stressful, and it ended up being just a whole thing in terms of getting the movie done. And then even on the editing process, trying to put all these pieces together was a whole thing. Sure. It's just a lot. But I learned a lot, and I made some really good friends and expanded my team as a result of creating this film. And now with Magenta, my crew is so strong, and we're not having any of those issues right now. So it's a beautiful process. And I have 3 more films I want to shoot in the next 5 years. So,
and now that the first one, you've done it on the spur of the moment, and you've done it in a difficult way. Mm-hmm. The rest of them should be a lot easier to.
Yeah, and we didn't even have half the even with so the biggest feedback I get back on the Bond is the sound, and this is a good time for me to address that, because motherfuckers be hitting me out about the sound. So the sound, literally for half the film, was recorded in camera with or either in camera or with a Zoom recorder being attached to it, mm-hmm. and literally Joey holding the thing and doing that, or with a boom pole. And then Carlos, bless his heart, Carlos Berber, who's like one of the top tier videographers and cinematographers in the game, check him out. His now wife Jasmine was a part of the film, and he was seeing what we're doing. He's like, yo, I got the sound equipment, I got this drone, let me pull up. I'm like, bet. So he provided sound for some very critical scenes, not the entire film, but very critical scenes that help improve the overall quality of the film. And so, and honestly, I was warned about this in film school, always think about sound, but I couldn't afford it. We were spending all the money on food, making sure the locations and all this stuff. So Carlos pulling it up was a godsend. But since then, now it's like, all right, now we need better sound in the next film. Right. And as we're shooting the Magenta, there's things on Magenta that I'm like, next time I'll do it different. You know what I'm saying? So it's a learning experience. It's that learning out loud thing, right?
Right, sure.
So by the time I get to that 4th or 5th film, you know what I'm saying, I'll be fired.
Sure.
I'll be fired as
no
hell.
Doubt.
And I'm willing to be out loud with it and talk about it, because there's a lot of people, the same way that I look at Kanye or Donald Glover, there's people who look at me saying, hey man, I want to be like you and do all the stuff that you're doing. How do I do it? And it's like, well, you got to be willing to fail a couple times.
One of my questions is you've kind of answered, because it seems like you kind of fell into this project, but you chose a sci-fi thriller, which for someone on an indie budget it to me seems like a huge choice.
Yeah, it probably wasn't smart.
Well, I mean, some people in your position might have made an artsy film about two guys that sat in that room over there.
Well, Magenta
might be more that way.
Well, Magenta is an artsy drama.
Okay.
So that was the plan, was to shoot an artsy drama as my first film.
I got you.
Like Sundance bait, right?
Right.
The Bond is so another critical factor of the Bond that actually made things very easier was the fact that Jasmine, Zion, and Ash are all fight choreographers.
Okay.
So they all have martial arts experience, and they all help the other people learn how to fight and do all that stuff. So that was a big help. And then also the secret move in all this was Sabrina Reed. So Sabrina Reed actually went to school with her at Scottsdale Film and Theater. We shared a couple classes together. She's actually an art designer, so she does stage production for a bunch of different plays, et cetera, so forth. She saw what I was doing, and she's like, "Let me pull up. Let me help you with this film." So she did the Dynamation suits, the logos. She did all the vests for all the turn agents. She did basically all the costume designs and all the design for the film. And she enhanced that film just that little bit amount that I needed. Because if she wasn't there, I would have been like bullshitting it, trying to make it up as I go along.
Well, I just want to say for all the listeners at home, this in the scope of the film, in the execution of the film, it's a good film. It's a good film. I watched it. I was entertained. It carried me through. The story, whatever small critiques I would have, like you mentioned, the sound or maybe certain little funny spots or whatever, the story carried me through them. It didn't stop me at all, And I used to be a fan of, like, sometimes weird little indie movies when I used to go to Blockbuster back in the day.
Sure, yeah.
And get high and watch weird movies. One of them I remember, it was pretty much a serious film the whole time. And then at the end, for some reason, one of the characters turned into like a big lizard. And then, I don't know, it's like one of those things, like, what is with the indie films that have that weird, like, spot in it? Do you know what I'm speaking of?
Yeah, so
like out of nowhere, it seems like it's a thing for them to put an extremely weird scene or event right in a certain part of an indie film.
A lot of it comes down to lack of story theory and understanding that, because you hear about stories like the hero's journey and all this stuff.
Sure,
but a lot of times people just pull it in real quick. I'm about to say something kind of mean. A lot of time, videographers and just creators in general just shoot pretty pictures, right? Like, oh, this shot looks good, let's put it in, right? Or, for example, for an indie filmmaker, oh, let's throw a lizard at the end because it's a nice twist, right? But is it logical? Does it make sense? Are we telling a story? Are we connecting with the people, right?
Fun while I was high, but I think a little weird for most people,
right?
Those types of movies.
And so what it comes down to is just not understanding how story theory works. So just being like, oh, I'm going to throw in a random plot twist because people might talk about it, which might be effective. And honestly, like, this is me talking as a pretentious-ass film student, not as, like, someone who enjoys movies.
Right.
Because, you might be right. I might get high and watch that and be like, oh, that lizard at the end was crazy. You know what I'm saying? But going to film school also ruined all that shit for me to where, like, I overanalyze. And I was kind of that way anyways. So...
Are you a fan of the new movie Everything Everywhere?
Oh, man, that's my favorite movie of all time.
Right? That's your favorite movie of all time? All time. You enjoyed it that much?
It took a while for me to make that statement. But yes, it's my favorite.
Because they had the hot dog fingers. This is my so in that movie they had the hot dog fingers, which I know is all different realities. I understand the concept or principle.
You actually let me give me a chance to circle back to something about my career. Back. So a lot of people aren't familiar with a part of my career known as the Black One Multiverse. And I'm not even sure if you even came across this, but if you search for the hashtag Black One Multiverse, what you wind up finding is a 7-year-long story that I created with multiple characters. And when I say multiple characters, I dropped the album as these characters: Bleezy Dangerfield, Ben Cloak, Cosmic Black, et cetera, so forth. You can find these albums out on Spotify. Each character was a different version of me, et cetera, so forth. And they were all woven together through short films, music videos, and short stories. And this went on for 7 years. I eventually wove in members of Starstruck, and it all came into a head in this book called Parallax, which is actually available on Amazon Books. You can
book writer as well.
Yes. And so Parallax is the finale of the Black One Multiverse, which if you follow my 10 fans know what I'm talking about. They're like, oh yeah, Black One Multiverse. You did all this stuff. You were doing this. You have maps and charts and graphics and all kinds of stuff. Right. So I'm a crazy, like, for me, like, I'm a nerd. I'm a science nerd. Like I said, like, I have a family of very intelligent people that just tell me things. I also do a lot of psychedelics, or I used to, not so much these days. But I've done a lot of drugs in my life, and so I've seen things from a different lens. And so I'm a big proponent of simulation theory, quantum mechanics, string theory, all these things like that. So a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once
was right down your alley.
Hits every single mark for me. From the action to the storytelling to the casting, the fact that Short Round from fucking Indiana Jones is in that bitch. Bro, it's crazy. Like that movie is it's perfect to me. Favorite movie all time, all time.
There's a strong recommendation for that.
Absolutely, it's crazy because even some of my people might be watching this and like, yeah, he's been bugging me about that film. I've been hitting up everybody about this film. And as soon as I saw it, I texted my best friend like, yo, we gotta go see this movie. I drove down to Tucson and took him to go see it because I knew that he would resonate so much with it. Right. And I think it's now his favorite movie too. Right. So
Understood. Making a movie is such an incredible process. We all watched as you, tried to garner donations and did. You didn't try to. You did. You garnered donations to feed the crew and the day in and day out of just filming scenes, tying it all together. The amount of money it takes. You mentioned you have a team, and I saw the credits. There's a lot of people. It's not just you, even though it seems to come from you and revolve around you. But, of course, you need people. I wanted to let you know my wife and I thought you spoke about some people that, shoot a scene just because it's a beautiful-looking scene, whether it has something to do with the movie or not. I felt like you guys shot a lot of beautiful scenes that did have something to do with the movie. And we noticed that. And my wife noticed that. And just as a casual viewer.
Thank you.
Definitely.
A big shout out to my cinematographer, Dan Haynes, Solo Visions. He shoots a lot of videos for Joseph Bills and guys like that. Okay. He came onto the film literally just... So one of the beautiful things about The Bond is that most of the people who came onto this film were just either fans of me or did they fuck with me in the past and they saw opportunity to work with me. Like Joey, for example, shout out to Voodoo Eyes. He's like my protege / assistant for the company now. He was trying to fuck with me for like a year. So like kind of the same way you hit me up for the other interview. I was like, I'm not ready for that right now. I'm very protective of my spirit and who I bring into my world. Mm-hmm. And so Joey, he would hit me up like, yo, let's work. And so when I made a post about The Bond, like, yo, I'm casting, he was like, all right, I'm gonna pull up and be in this film. So he got in the film. He's now a close friend of mine, and he's a part of the company now. Right. So with Dan was like, yo, let me shoot this film with you. I have a camera too. Like, let me shoot this film with you. I'm like, fuck yeah, because shooting this by myself sounds super stressful, and I actually hate holding a camera and being a cinematographer. I know it's kind of crazy because I do that for a living, but if I can not hold the camera and just direct, right? Absolutely, that's what it's all about. So Dan pulled up and he's like, yo, let me shoot this. Got you. So we teamed up. We actually half the shots are him. We basically had 2 cameras in every scene. Sure. My camera, his camera. Now with Magenta, I'm not on camera. I have him and Edwin Herrera as my shooters on there, and I just direct. And it's been
awesome, right? Yeah. I'm assuming when I think about, can we turn that down in there, guys? And as I'm thinking about this project, it just overwhelms me the amount of coordination, cooperation, money, time, energy, focus that it just takes to make something like this happen. These actors, wonderful actors, especially the lead and Karen. And when I say the lead, I think we're talking about Ash, the brother that had a drinking issue.
Sure, yeah.
And the other brother that wore pink was a bit goofy, is way he's led to be.
Sure.
The only thing, it took me a minute to realize that he was goofy. Because he seemed goofy, and for a minute I thought, is he supposed to be? But it was, over and over and over, it came through. It came through for that. The choice for the white woman's name to be Karen.
It's Kara.
Oh, it's Kara. Yeah. It's not Karen?
It's not Karen. It's
Kara. I have bad hearing. The whole time we thought they were saying Karen.
That might be one of the sound issues.
Okay.
It's Kara. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, the reason why I asked that is because this film seems like a time capsule for what we were all dealing with, and maybe our worst fears during COVID.
Worst case scenario type of situation for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, years later, you could look back at this movie, and if her name would have been Karen, it would have led to this point more. But it did. But
I kind of wish I would have called her Karen.
Karen being such a powerful name for white ladies these days. But no, the film really did seem to me to be like a time capsule of what we went through, and I think that's a whole different gem in itself. That years later, people will look at that film and be like, yeah, the pandemic and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, hopefully we won't actually be going through it by then.
Not.
You know,
we'll see.
Is shooting in and around Phoenix, is that easier? Me being a novice again, I would think you shot most of the outdoor footage kind of guerrilla style without permits and stuff like that. Is that snitching for me to say that? Or do we not say that? Is it improper to say that? I don't know.
So...
My question is
there
this.
was a discussion at one
point. You can leave that alone. My question is this.
I'll answer.
Okay,
I got you.
Okay.
So there was a point in time when we were creating the film, if we were going to go through the film office and be like, hey, we're going to pull permits and do all this stuff. Yeah. That question came up at one point.
More money, more trouble.
And honestly, like, I'm artistically petty. And what I mean by that is that if somebody fucking messes me up artistically to where I feel like something's not going the way I want to, I get petty as fuck. And so when it comes to the film office out here, and this is not even actually this is kind of shots fired. The film industry out here is fucked up.
Right.
And I don't want to work with most of these people out here. They try to hit me up and say I want to do this, but I'm like, nah, you guys aren't moving right.
Right.
And I have stories to tell about that. I might even get too
deep into that. No, we'll take your word.
But there's just some weird stuff, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're a red state. A lot of the fact has to do with I'm black. All these things playing a role into
issues
what I'm
in Arizona, sure.
And I'm not trying to shake hands with Ducey so I can shoot the bond, right?
Gotcha.
Or whoever, right? And so, nah. I'm saying
I'm a fan of shooting.
We're pulling up to these train tracks and just shooting.
Right. I'm a fan of shooting guerrilla style. I've known friends that have done videos and whatever that way. My point being is, to lead to this question, is it easier to shoot that style in Phoenix than, say, it would be in Atlanta or New York or any another
Absolutely,
city?
because there's no structure out here. If I tried to shoot the Bond the way that I shot the Bond out here out in LA, I probably would have been arrested.
Right. Because people would have known what out here in Arizona, you can almost get away with the fact that people don't realize what you're doing until it's too late.
Well, to be fair, too, the locations that I chose for the most part were secluded. One of the main locations actually almost got in trouble, like really big trouble over.
Near the Trainyard, because they're protective of the train track.
The fight scene in the middle of the movie between Ash and Joey, that location right there.
Okay.
The area that we shot at was legit. We were cool to be there, but to the left of it is like a very secure train yard that's like government owned. And if you're caught on that property, they can arrest you immediately.
My son likes trains. We've been ran off a few of those locations.
And so I was there. Like it's a spoiler of the scene, but the Dynamation truck's pulling up while they're fighting in that scene, and as soon as we got out of the car, they pulled up on us and like, you can't be here. This is your only warning. We see you again, you're arrested. I'm like, all right, bet. So, yeah, some scary points in time. Yeah.
But you got it done.
You got it done.
And it looks great on film.
I would never shoot the Bond the way that I shot that movie again.
Sure.
It was very risky.
Sure.
It was fun as hell. I'll tell you that. I had a blast shooting it. But now that I'm more legit, have some more money, if I got to pull a permit, I'll pull a permit.
Right.
Otherwise, I do have a guy, shout out to Rob. He's a location god. I hit him up. He just gets me stuff. So
you've kind of alluded to it. Any type of movement like this takes a lot of people, a lot of action. And you've mentioned you did get some GoFundMe donations. We've heard stories of some of early movies being funded with credit cards, investors, this or that. I'm not going to check your pockets at all, but you put something pretty incredible looking on screen for what seems to me a very modest budget, to say the least. So speak to working within a very modest budget. And
a couple of blessings came into our factor to make that happen. And this is shout out to Tyrone, Yam Yams. I'm not sure if he's watching, but Yam Yams is a sponsor of mine. They're actually a cannabis delivery service.
Sure, big sponsor of the Hatrix. I'm familiar.
They're awesome. We're talking about how I don't go to dispensaries anymore. That's because they got me.
Well, I need to holler at Yams then. See what he's doing over there. Double Yams.
They're dope. So Yam Yams.
My man with the backpack.
Tyrone. He saw what I was. He's actually in the film too. He plays Gabriel, the Dynamation head.
Okay.
He was like, "Yo, let me help you." And so he threw a lot of money at the film.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was like, yo, I got you.
Cool.
If you need something this day, just hit me up and I got you. So he was actually critical in getting some very critical things done. And then the rest of it just came out of my pocket.
Sure.
Honestly.
Right.
And at the time, I couldn't afford a lot of that shit. We were just making that work. Now, it's less of an issue. But
is there a viable highway to recoup?
From that movie?
Yeah.
Or
is this
we'll
this an expense of work to get to the next place?
We'll see.
Yeah.
Our budget was only $15K. At this point, we've already made back $3.
You put all that on film. You put all that on the screen for $15K.
Yeah.
That's an incredible accomplishment.
And so,
hold on, I got to give you that. Hold on. I don't like to hit the applause too much like some other people, but man, putting together a complete movie for $15K. Now, I understand a lot of the people, the actors you worked with, may be working for opportunity and to work with you, as you kind of spoke
all the main actors.
Was anybody paid? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes. Although I do owe somebody some money. I'll pay you, Jubes. Where you at? Where's the camera at?
Yeah, it's on the side. It's up in the camera.
I owe you some money.
He will pay you.
I owe you some money, but everybody else got paid.
Sure.
I actually just dropped a big old fat bag on ass yesterday. So
now, all right.
Bless his heart.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to get
part of it with the movie too. What I told part of the enticement of this, was that one, you get to work with me, and I'm fucking awesome. I'm me.
Got it.
And two, you get 15%. I'm taking 15% of the gross and splitting that amongst the crew, the main cast.
Sure.
And
so New Line Cinema comes and buy this film. There'll be bread to share and spread with everybody.
We're not trying to sell the movie.
Oh, you are.
So
okay.
Part of it too is I have my own production and media company. So I'm trying to
really be independent.
Rewrite the blueprint. So that's part of the rollout strategy. We finished the film. We did the red carpet event. The movie right now is available on thebondmovie.com exclusively. It's the only place you can get it until July 1st, which will be on Amazon Prime for sale there.
Okay.
And so you asked me the question about recouping.
Yes.
It's possible. But to be really fucking honest about this, I am tired of this film. I've watched this movie 1 billion times.
I bet.
It's still not even as good as I want it to be. It's great. Don't get me wrong.
Sure. No.
We're moving on, right? So we're going to put this movie on Amazon Prime. Might cut another trailer. Might do some more ads. Might continue this press run for a little bit. But we're moving on to Magenta. And I got 3 more projects I got to shoot.
That's awesome.
I got a lot of dope stuff in the works. So just, yeah.
I make 1.5 minute, 2-minute videos sometimes for fun, sometimes to joke with the local community. I love and hate video editing because I feel it's very creative.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I could sit there and do it all day and make minor changes and never get to the end if I let myself. One, how long did it take to edit? Once you're done shooting, how long did it take to edit the Bond? And do you hate or love that process?
So it took a year to edit the Bond. There's probably 15 drafts of it. So,
and
yeah.
I'm assuming you did that
I
yourself.
did it all. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. With that said, editing is my favorite part of the video making process.
Okay.
I like editing because to me that's the real storytelling part, and there's so much room for interpretation. Right. If I take 5 shots and give them to you or give them to whoever, right, it's gonna come out different, and it's all really about that interpretation of the edit.
Yeah.
And editing is a whole psychological thing, which is my shit. So
yeah.
I like playing around with the edit a lot more than I like creating the footage for the edit.
Right. What are some hints to how you know when you're done? It seems like it could be an endless process. Like you
with narratives
with editing. No, with editing, you could try a different light style or color. You could so many things you could do differently. So many small things. Or do you have kind of a plan and a focus when you begin that gets
That's a good
there?
question because I think a lot of it kind of depends on what we're trying to do. Like with Magenta, like I said earlier, I had the entire movie storyboarded, shot list. I had a vision exactly how I want to see that, right? But if I'm shooting a music video for a rapper and they don't have a solid vision and we're just waving the camera around, I'm just playing around the edit, then the video's done when I feel like it feels good watching it.
Right. So it's just a feeling you get. It's just a feeling.
But something like the Bond though, there's a narrative structure that has to be hit. I'm saying scenes being a certain length. I'm saying dialogue beats hitting at a certain point, even with sound coming in and all that stuff. And that's something I kind of underestimated going into it. Because, I got to edit. I'm going to edit this 2-hour fucking film by myself in the dark ass room that I have. I'm not saying just doing that. But I did that. And so it was I learned a lot in the edit, and like I said before, I really enjoy editing a lot. I think that's probably my favorite part of the filmmaking process is editing, and besides writing the script.
Sure, you like writing and editing the best.
I don't like actually writing in terms of sitting down and typing stuff, even though I talk a lot of shit on Facebook. I don't like writing the story. I love coming up with the story, right? Creating the story. And then eventually I do write it. But at this point, I have 5 scripts that I'm just sitting on that I'm trying to get shot. And I'm trying to write at least 2 more. We're also writing a novel version of The Bond. So we're turning it into a book to put on Amazon.
That's cool.
So I've been doing a lot of writing.
Why not flesh it out and flesh it out in every format?
Yeah, the book will have like a couple of extra scenes that weren't in the movie, and then kind of flesh out like character motivations and descriptions and stuff like that. So there'll be stuff to pull from it if you've already seen the movie. You
mentioned the multiverse. Do you feel like movies was just a natural transition for your storytelling? It seems like what you have to offer is too much to be contained in just music.
Yeah, I'm going to get egotistical for a second. So
feel free.
I've always felt like I'm ahead of the curve. That's something I kind of pride myself on. The problem is with being ahead of the curve is that usually people don't fuck with you because you're ahead of the curve and you're weird and you're doing whatever. But like I said, I was talking about the multiverse 7 years ago, and I was popping that off like, yo, the multiverse is going to be the wave. This is what we're going to be on. There's many examples of this throughout my career. Even like beats. One of the biggest examples is the fact that one of the Childish Gambino songs that he has on the royalty mixtape, there's a beat on there. I had that beat from that producer on my computer 3 years prior.
Wow.
Because we were talking back and forth. And I'd used some of those beats that he gave me, but not that beat. Actually, we did make a song from that beat, but I never put it out. And then I heard it on Childish Gambino's album. I'm like, damn, I definitely had that same exact beat from the same exact producer on my computer.
Right.
So there's many examples like that where I've always kind of seen forward, and I've always tried to be like, well, people are doing podcasts and shit. Well, I got to figure out what we're doing next, right?
Yeah.
And by the time they get to what I'm doing next, we're on to the next shit. I joke about it. I'm like, I'm a rapper who made a film. Give it 3 years, there's going to be 40 rappers who have films in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Because the prices are getting cheaper.
Yeah.
The accent, I'm saying, it's a thing. But by then, we'll be making like TV series and shit. So.
I think the one thing that'll keep a lot of rappers from doing it is the amount of work.
Work ethic is critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people get mad at me for my work ethic.
To me, it would be so overwhelming. I would get anxiety thinking about the project as a whole. Do you break it down into pieces to make it easier to digest as far as the work?
I probably should, but I don't.
Yeah, you just attack it all.
I just go in.
Yeah.
Because it's how my mind works. And what's good about being a multimedia artist is that it really helps with because I have a lot of mental health issues. I deal with depression, anxiety, things like that. And so being a multimedia artist allows me to switch lanes. So currently, like even right now, I'm working on 3 different albums. I'm working on Magenta. I'm doing all this stuff for a real estate agent, and I'm working for a rehabilitation center and a nonprofit. But I'm also a father, right? I'm also a husband, and I'm also a friend, and I also like to play video games, right? So
I get it. The very time-consuming thing.
Right now, I'm trying to beat Elden Ring. That game is kicking my ass. But
do you sleep with all that?
No, I do. No, that's important too.
Okay.
Sleep too. Yeah. So it's balance, right? My life is all about achieving balance, and that's been my biggest secret. And I try to tell that to people because people are like, "Oh man, you're out there working. You're working hard. You're doing it. You must not sleep or not do that." I'm like, no, I get up and I chill. I watch like 5 YouTube videos, smoke a bowl. I start doing the work for my companies. I'm saying I hit up Patrick. I pull up on him, shoot some videos, come home, work on the film for a little bit or whatever the project for the day is.
Right.
My wife comes home. We have a glass of kombucha, have a conversation. I go back into the lab, maybe watch some more YouTube videos, and eventually I go to bed around 12 o'clock. I'm up by 5.
Sure.
Somewhere in there's a nap.
Right. I take naps as well.
Right, and to me, that's like the perfect balance because like people, you take a nap during the day? Yeah, I need that. That's how I'm able to stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning. You see me posting 2 o'clock in the morning because I took a nap that day.
Right.
And I'm still working on the side, either working on whatever project I'm doing or whatever. So.
You recently got married. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm a married man as well. So I know the importance of a supportive partner, but I'm not doing near as much as you. So please, for a moment, speak to the importance of having a supportive partner in this creative world. I know I've been accused of being hard to be with as a creative person, and I know a lot of my creative friends have had issues in relationships because some women just don't understand, as the great Will Smith once said.
So I will honestly say that my wife saved my life. when I met her, it was a very serendipitous situation, just how we came together without going into details. Right. We were going back and forth in the relationship thing, and then we decided to get together. But the reason why I say that she saved my life is because she pushed me to be great. Mm-hmm. And that was what it really came down to. And this is part of my rollout story that I tell people. But at this point, it would be 4 years ago. I was working at Waymo, self-driving cars, way out there in Chandler.
Okay.
Interesting job.
I'm familiar. When we first moved here, they were everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been my fourth 9-to-5 job that year. I kept getting fired from all these jobs, trying to figure it out, dealing with depression. I had just broken up with his mom, so that was like a whole thing, trying to deal with that. She was trying to wait for me to figure it out, right? So I get up and I go to work, or get ready to go to work, getting dressed. They call me. Waymo calls me. They're like, bro, don't come into work. You're fired. I'm like, no explanation. Just like, yeah, bro, don't worry about it. Click.
It's tough.
So I hang up the phone, and literally I burst into tears because at that point I didn't know what to do. I'm like, man, first of all, Waymo was paying fat. They're paying like $22 an hour. Like, it was good money. So I was like already making plans, like me and my girlfriend talking about getting a new apartment, all this stuff. And I'm like, damn, the rug just got pulled out from underneath me. And so I'm sitting there crying. I'm just like, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And my now wife comes up to me and she's like, I don't understand why you just don't go 100% in all this art shit. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I've known you long enough to see what you do. And you're incredibly talented. You have all these skill sets, but you're on the fence with it. You're only giving half-ass. You're too busy trying to get a 9-to-5 and not going hard on your company and all this thing. Wow. And that's stressing you out and that's burning you out. And now you're over here in tears because you got fired from your job and you're just floating, right? So you need to fucking focus. And I'm like, you're right. I need to put 100% into all this. So at that point, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna do all this. I'm gonna sell these beats. I think the next year I ended up selling like 125 beats and shot like 50 videos. But it was still hard. I mean, I went down financially. There was a point in time when my car got repoed. I had to pay to get it out. I had to call the homie. So I hit bottom at some point financially. But because of the support of my girlfriend, the fact that she believed in me so much, the fact that I had other people supporting me from all my fans from Tucson, et cetera, and so forth, just pushing me, I kind of broke through that mirror wall. And I'm like, all right, bet. Here I am now. Like, I'm going to fucking do this no matter what. I'm going to figure this shit out. We're going to make it happen. Now, at this point, I don't even like to gloat about it too much, but my company is doing very fucking well now, to the point where I'm hiring other people. We're bringing people on. We're trying to spread that love. I try to pride myself in my leadership skills. And one of the biggest things about being a leader is that leaders create leaders who create leaders. So even with my protege, Joey, I'm trying to bring him on and kind of make him another version of me, right? He's 26, maybe 27 at this point. So he's 10 years younger than me, right? So ideally, if he can know all the shit that I knew, that I wish I knew at his age, he'll be a beast by the time he hits his 30s, right? And we just repeat that cycle. We start expanding the platform, start doing more nonprofits, and start doing, like, I don't know, mentorships for kids and things like that, and kind of spreading the blueprint around and creating something that's more than just me making a bunch of money off of art.
Your partner, your father, your family sounds very supportive. Is it tough being the brother to two doctors?
Absolutely.
I had my good friend growing up. His father was one of the predominant black heart doctors in Richmond, and the rest of his family became doctors and lawyers. He was the baby and the black sheep, like me as well. And I always felt for him because it seemed, my brother and sister did fine, but they weren't doctors and lawyers, and it seems like that creates a huge shadow to live under. Is that correct?
Kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, my grandma, she is 94 years old, from Louisiana, Louisiana, Grambling State. And she's seen some shit. She's a sharecropper. She ended up hightailing it out of Louisiana to go to New Mexico to dodge segregation. I was just talking to my grandma last week because I was just with her. But her whole thing, like her whole philosophy, is education. Because these people out here, white people out here, quote unquote, won't respect you if you do not know how to talk. If you don't know how to educate yourself, and you don't know how to explain yourself. And so that was embedded into our family. Go to college, get that degree, and you'll get the respect that you deserve. I and my family, and this is something that we actually talk about a lot. There are generational type of issues in our family in the sense that, like, the generation before me, they were so focused on the education that they weren't focused on the money. So now my uncle, he's still out there trying to grind, trying to get that Mercedes-Benz, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, well, if we had better financial literacy in our family, then maybe you would have already had that, and his son wouldn't be working at wherever he's working at right now, right? And so me being in the position that I am, you know, I dropped out of college. My family was not happy about that, and they were nervous about what the fuck I was trying to do with my life.
Sure, I could imagine, yeah.
And even up until the last 5-6 years, they were still like, well, what the hell are you doing? Now they know. But the point is that me and my nephew is the fucking man. Like, honestly, like, my nephew is probably the biggest creative in Arizona that people don't know about. He's worked with Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Travis Scott, Drake. He's currently working with Dr. Genius and Kid Cudi right now. He's the man. But he, going back to the leadership thing, right? I raised this kid, wiped his ass and all this stuff, et cetera, so forth. So he's always calls me for that advice and says, hey, I need help.
And you're the male role model that maybe you didn't have as much.
Exactly. And so a lot of all this just comes down to knowing what I want. You know what I'm saying, the top of the discussion, where it's just like, I want to be great. There are people in my life who believe in me and want me to be great too. Family, friends, whatever. So going back to the pressure, the educational pressure, I don't even know what the tipping point was, but there's a point in time where I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do this, and y'all are just going to respect it or not, whatever. And I had some estrangement from the family for a little bit too, because they wanted me to go to college and do all that, and I wasn't doing that.
Right.
I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an artist. I want to tell stories. And my brother, who is probably my biggest male model in my life, because my father passed away, he is like this super charismatic. He does speeches for a living, right? Wow. He tours the country and does speeches on diversity and inclusion,
right,
and bias and all this stuff. He commands like $25,000 a speech, just doing his thing, right? And so I look at him, I look at all my siblings in my family, and I realize that I pull all these different traits from them. My sister, who's a super nerd, and I'm saying she has a doctorate in microbiology. She's over here working with like wetlands and different types of. She's just amazing, right? Right. But if you have conversations with her, she was my go-to for COVID, because she works over at.
Right. She could give you some real information, which we weren't getting. Right.
She works at the U of A, and when COVID hit, she was actually working with the virus.
Okay.
To like try to figure some shit out. They were like trying to make like a hand cream or something like that. And so when the virus hit, I was calling her up like, "What's good?" And she's like, "Well, you know, yeah. This is how it works, et cetera, so forth." So she was like my source.
Can I ask you a question? Was her advice more Joe Rogan or more Fauci?
Somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a very, very, very practical and very logical person.
Okay. And saying that, I don't intend to, with Joe Rogan, I don't intend to deal with what people thought what he was doing was crazy. I was actually referring to the real information he gave. Vitamin D, losing weight, getting enough sleep and exercise. The more natural combating of the virus that we had.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole different podcast, but
we don't want to get into that.
Yeah, it gets a little deep.
I'm just interested that your sister had real, at a time when we were all starving for real information. You had access to real information,
right? And so I felt good about that. I felt a little cocky too when I was talking shit on Facebook, but because well, my sister knows because she's working with them. Saying I was like that. But
I don't even like to say it out loud, but I haven't gotten coronavirus yet.
Oh, really? You're lucky.
I've never got it.
I ended up catching it on the bond. The bond got shut down for 3 weeks. So I got COVID.
Yeah.
So
well, it happens, and we still don't know. Actually, I haven't heard what
3 of the cast members caught COVID,
and we're all survived. God bless.
So
okay, good.
That was scary as fuck when that happened, and it was ironic. So
yeah.
One of those ironic shooting a pandemic movie and catching a virus things that happens.
Yeah. Reality shoot, right?
Yeah.
I will be honest to admit, when I first started following you on Facebook, on social media, some of your posts were off-putting or I didn't understand.
Sure.
And I'm sure you've heard this from other people. I'm not the first. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure when you write some of these things, you're an intelligent man. You know what you're writing. You know what you're doing. I would say that after getting to know you through your art and just from afar, getting to know you the little bit that I have, it seems to me that the posts I may have thought were a little off-putting or a little awkward, to me now seems like self-affirming I'm not going to say that word correctly. Self-affirming exclamations, I guess, is what.
Do you have an example of a post?
No. I know. Well, you'll have a post that simply says, I did this and I'm great or something. I'm paraphrasing.
Sure.
I'm generalizing. But they can be somewhat self-aggrandizing at times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you have full confidence. You don't apologize for that at all. Is that a part of you kind of beating the blues back?
So when it comes to Facebook in particular, and this is I'm different on different social media channels for whatever reason. Like on Instagram, you can see me tell jokes all day. But on Facebook, the reason why I love Facebook the most is because, one, I can write the most, so long ass stories if I want to, and most of my family and friends are on it. So I treat Facebook, and I tell people all the time. Once I explain this to them, they're like, "Oh, that makes sense." I treat Facebook as a real-time personal journal of my thoughts in real time. So if I make a post, I'm thinking about that probably right now, right?
Right.
What ends up happening is that because of my Geminian personality and my ego and the fact that I am black in a 3% black fucking state, I be coming off kind of aggressive, and I be saying shit that be pissing people off. Whatever. At the end of the day, I'm still going to be who I am. And what I love the most about Facebook are the Facebook memories. Every day I check my Facebook memories. I have, at this point, probably thousands of Facebook posts, right?
Sure.
So I go on Facebook memories and I look back 10 years and I'm like, damn, that was wild.
Yeah.
Or damn, I was right about that.
Right.
Or damn, that guy was an asshole. Or
Right.
damn, so it's good to look for receipts, right?
Yeah.
Or damn, I was killing it.
You see how it worked out, in other words. You kind of see how it worked
So for
out.
me, in every couple of years, I'll download all my Facebook history and have it on my computer. I actually had this idea about making a coffee table book out of all my Facebook posts. So you flip through it, and there's the Facebook post, and you have all the comments from all the different people talking.
I think
on it.
the minute after your hit movie hits, you'll have a national bestseller with that. And I know you want to do it all now. I know you don't want to wait for some goal to do everything. That's ridiculous, because then we never do anything.
Right.
But that book would be interesting.
I also love part of my brother's brand. He does this brand called JP Enterprises. They focus on diversity, inclusion, and bias, et cetera, and so forth. But their tagline is the right kind of uncomfortable. And if you ever talk to my fucking brother, he loves to have uncomfortable conversations about whatever. We just had a wild ass conversation when I saw him a couple of days ago about Juneteenth, and I kind of got that from him. I definitely picked that up from him, where it's like we could have that uncomfortable talk about that mass shooting, or why your music sucks, or why, I'm saying, whatever. I'll talk to you about it. I'm saying, and I always try to keep it civil. I never try to cross that line.
Sure.
It might happen from time to time. I think recently I just roasted the hell out of some dude, but that was just a bad day for me. That was the first time. That was a while that I had gone into a roast session, but usually I try to keep it civil. I try to walk the line and just have that conversation and make people kind of come to their own conclusions. I never try to steer anybody in a certain direction. What I say is what I say, and that's who I am. If you accept it, fine. If not, that's cool too. You can block me. You can. Plenty of people have. So
right,
and I'm cool with that.
You alluded to it being a black person, a black man in a state where it's 3, 4, whatever, small percentage of black people. That's what surprised me when I first moved here. I came from Richmond, where in the city of Richmond it's about 50-50. And I said, wow, I'm in a big city now. This is the 4th biggest city in the country. Obviously, hip hop is going to be expanded and all these opportunities. And what I forgot to do the numbers is that 50% of X amount and 3% of X amount. It's still more and bigger here in Phoenix than it was in Richmond. Don't get me wrong. It's just not as big as I thought it was, because it's black people only 3%.
Also, too, Arizona's a big college state too. With
Right.
ASU, U of A, and even in Flagstaff. So there's a lot of people who are transplants here who are here for 3 or 4 years and then dip.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of hard to lock in a culture out here. But honestly, that's why I keep telling people that's actually one of the biggest advantages about Arizona, is that Arizona is a melting pot.
Well, people say that about there's no culture here. We've heard that ever since we came here. Oh, there's no culture. There's no culture. And I tell people, especially black people, I come from Virginia, where we are rich in culture. Now, a lot of that culture is painful.
Sure.
A lot of that culture is hurtful. But I will say, coming from there to here, what I've learned, and pardon me, I don't want to speak out of turn. it seems like black folks here are a little bit more protective, a little bit more paranoid about blackness than where I came from in Richmond. In Richmond, people that are black know they're black. They know who's white. It's very defined. People have found a way to either say I love you or fuck you, however they feel.
Let me simmer on that.
Do you think I'm onto something there, or do you think I'm just a crazy old white guy?
So,
I'm open to your critique.
I'm gonna apply this to me personally.
Sure.
Because I think about my son, right? So my son is 3 different races. He is Indonesian, he is Dutch, and he is black.
Okay.
And if you look at him, he's whatever, right? And my wife is Jewish. So my family unit is not the traditional black family unit, right?
Pardon me for interrupting. Wouldn't he be Jewish as well?
They're not the same. His mom is a different.
Okay.
Different
I forgot. Yeah, my bad.
And so, because of that, first of all, I have very rich black history from my grandma. She has land in Grambling University right now. Both my brothers and both brother and sister with the doctorates went to Grambling. I've been to Louisiana a bunch of times. I have a bunch of family down there. So right. I have a lot of roots from the South and like traditional black values. I grew up Baptist, et cetera, so forth. But coming out to Arizona with the melting pot, I've been exposed to so many different backgrounds that I kind of am more on this liberal kind of we're all blended together Zion Matrix vibe, right? Where I believe that we're all derived from the same source, right? And so going back to your question, the paranoia that I feel as a black person is mostly attached to my fears of a black person in America. What does it mean to be black in America? I have conversations with my son about this all the time where it's like, yeah, you might be white passing at your school that you go to, but a police officer might pull you over and cap your ass because you're blackish. You're black enough, right?
Tough conversation.
And these are all these things that I have to think about right now. Like this conversation that I have with my brother about Juneteenth, right? And the whole point of it, Juneteenth ice cream and all this bullshit, right? These are conversations that I honestly do not want to have as a black person because they're hard talks, right? Basically what you were saying before. But I need to have them for the sake of keeping my son in the knowledge and just keeping my mind sharp, right? Mm-hmm. But moving forward and looking forward, I always think about my son, my multiracial, beautiful child, and the fact that I'm trying to have another kid with my Jewish wife, right? Mm-hmm. I'm making rainbow child kids over here. Mm-hmm. So I can't be over here saying, oh, pro-black everything, and alienate half my child. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying not to make this too racist.
No, I got
that's
you.
just kind of how I feel about that.
I people think I'm racial. Some people think I'm a racist. I had to fight against that in Arizona after 50 years of not having to fight against that. But I am racial because race has affected me as a guy that grew up in the South, Southern Baptist Church. Immediately fell in love with hip hop and black people. Black people before hip hop, actually, and black culture. It's always been tough for me.
Sure.
I'm a man of a certain age. And for the people that don't remember, it wasn't so cool to be a white guy in hip hop, 30 years ago.
So one of my favorite analogies is that being white in hip hop is the equivalent of being black in America.
I agree.
In the sense that
I totally agree.
It's an uphill battle that you'll probably never fucking win.
Right.
And you got to deal with that. If you can accept that, then we'll welcome you with welcome arms. But you have motherfuckers like Tom McDonald and all these people out here who like to push those buttons and kind of tip that scale. And it's like, well, keep in mind that there's culture, there's rich tradition, there are values that people extract from this stuff. And if you want to muddy the waters for the sake of clout and TikTok likes, then,
Is it unfair that he fucks with us like that as a Canadian? He's not even American. So he hadn't really...
Actually, I didn't even know that.
He hadn't really dealt with racism in America on either side. So I think it's a little unfair that he likes to poke at us like that.
Well, okay, so that makes you think about Drake, right? So fucking Drake, he's not from America.
Yeah, he's Canadian as well.
He's definitely co-opted all that American money and hangs out in American cities and do all that, but he's never spoken on American issues.
No.
Why? He's not fucking American. Should Drake be speaking on Black Lives Matter? I mean, he should. You think that he should,
as
right?
a black man, I think
that he should, but he's not obligated to because he's not from this country. Now that is a cop-out.
But is he smarter? Is he a businessman? Is he a smarter businessman by not speaking on it?
If Drake had dropped a surprise Black Lives Matter album on some Kendrick Lamar shit, he would have changed the fucking world.
True, but maybe that's just not in him.
Which is fair.
You know,
I can't hate him for that. It's just interesting because we talked about the Canadian thing.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought about Drake. I'm like, well, Drake's Canadian. We're not over here saying, well, you need to talk about black people more, Drake.
No.
We could put that pressure on him, and eventually I think he would.
We have asked that of white rappers in hip hop. We have asked that of white folks in hip hop to come out and be verbal.
I think that's the dues that have to be paid, though, and it gets complicated as we talk about this. And I'm saying this out loud.
No, say it. Feel free.
It's different because I feel like I don't know, because like with Drake, right? Like he does have that black side. You look at his father; he has those roots in that lineage, so he kind of gets a pass on that, right? But a purebred white rapper from Kansas trying to get it popular, like Jack Harlow, for example, right? Uphill battle for that man.
Uphill battle.
The entire time.
Everyone blamed him for being carried into the Kentucky Derby. No one blamed the men that carried him.
Yeah.
That's the thing with me when you talk about, Jack Harlow, he's under intense criticism since his new project dropped because it seemed like they're trying to make him the guy. Sure. Right? But I've seen people, a lot of local people, but people in general heap a lot of criticism on him in particular, but no one tends to criticize DJ Drama, who brought him into the game. Nobody tends to criticize, like I said, the black men that did the actual carrying of him, or his black management that made somebody carry him. There's no white guy, like you mentioned, not many white guys, except for maybe Tom McDonald, get into the game solely on their own without the help and cooperation of the homies, the producers, the management, the agents, the radio podcasters. There's a whole group of people that have to align with you to make it in this game, hip hop, right?
So the thing is, there's a lane for white rappers, though. Like,
there's definitely a lane.
One of my favorite artists in Arizona, period, hands down, is Marley B. Marley B from Tucson, Arizona. Dude just got off tour with Dizzy White.
Right.
And if you listen to his music, it's compelling. He's a great storyteller. His production is great. He's solid. And if you talk to him, he's a fantastic guy.
Okay.
And honestly, it's kind of all you need, right?
Right.
If you're pushing and you're really about the culture and you're really all about it, you can make it happen and these people will believe in you. Right. A lot of times, though, what you're kind of seeing is a lot of people are fucking around with that aesthetic. Being like Tom McDonald, for example, I'm gonna try and trigger people and make people mad using hip hop as a tool.
Sure, I don't like that.
That gets disrespectful. Right. If you just want to make a podcast and talk all that shit, so be it.
Yeah.
But you're using our culture to do that, and that's where people are like, "Oh, that's not cool," because we're not signing off on that.
Right.
If Jack Harlow made a song saying "Red Hats Forever" or something like that, we would flip, right?
He aligned himself with KFC. And mentioned how much he loved black women in the same week. Is he trying too hard?
I don't know Jack Harlow enough to say that.
Good answer. That's a smart answer.
I don't know him enough.
All right, let's forget about white rappers and Jack Harlow for a minute. To get back to this Bond movie, it's a great movie. I've seen the movie. It's a good movie on its own when you think about that this whole thing came together from one person's brain and a lot of hard work from a crew of dedicated people that align themselves with this one person's brain. To me, that makes it a spectacular movie. The Bond, you've got a lot of other projects on deck. Is there any chance we will revisit The Bond in a sequel, in another movie that is tied to that universe?
That's literally the biggest question that I've been asked because, as you know,
it's necessary.
As you know, the movie ends on a cliffhanger.
Yes. It seems like a traditional some more shit's coming ending. I won't give anything away, but
So with that said, yes, we will be making a sequel to the Bond.
Incredible. Incredible. Hold on, let me.
Now, the big question is, when are we going to make the sequel to the Bond? I have a story in mind. So basically, the Bond was supposed to be a trilogy originally. Like when I was writing this, I'm like, there's going to be a before and an after to this because the movie kind of picks up in the middle. And so I was going to have a movie kind of explaining the events leading up to the movie and then what happens afterwards, right? But I also have 3 other movies on my slate, including Magenta, Nameless Horizon, and I think we decided that we're going to shoot a project called Run that I'm working on. The next Bond probably won't come out for 3 or 4 years, if it does.
Okay.
That's
understandable.
It's a big if. Just because, like I said before, shooting the Bond was hard as fuck. It was probably the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life, hands down, was making that movie.
I forgot to ask. The fight scene's the hardest part of shooting that film? Because in my novice mind, I would imagine the fight scenes were hardest. I'm just guessing. What were the harder scenes?
Yeah, the fight scenes were okay because we choreographed them.
Okay.
I would say the preparation was probably the hardest, and I'll just keep it civil. I was going to say something kind of mean, but no, it was just the fight scenes were the hardest. We'll just say that the fight scenes were the hardest.
All right. agree with the host. Okay.
Yeah.
No pain there. If I had to put you on the spot, who's your favorite director?
Currently or all time?
You can give me both. If they're different, I'll take both.
Currently is Taika Waititi.
Okay.
He's a fucking man. I love his work. All time.
We'll Google that.
He's the guy who did Thor.
Okay.
Thor and what we did in the Shadows.
I never thought Thor would be as popular as it's become.
That's because of that dude.
Yeah, okay.
He flipped the script on that.
Okay.
Also, my all-time favorite director, and this is actually a really tough one, because the film student in me would be like, oh, well, it's actually Akira Kurosawa because of the way he uses shots. But honestly, it's probably Darren Aronofsky or Christopher Nolan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for the unfamiliar, what's some of their bigger film or popular
Darren
films?
Aronofsky, he's most famously known for Requiem for a Dream.
Okay, I've seen that.
Yeah, so like the big shots of the eyes and all that stuff, that's his style. Christopher Nolan, Christopher Nolan, Tenet, Interstellar.
Okay, Interstellar, I've seen that. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of writer-directors. So like directors who write their own scripts and create them themselves.
Of course you are. That makes sense.
With that said, there are directors who are pretty good at not doing that. I'm saying I think about dude who did Spider-Man, John Watts. Those movies are pretty fire. So I'm saying like,
I know you're a superhero fan. How do you speak to the critics of superhero movies? Some of the older Hollywood types think they're trash or they're ruining Hollywood. I think
they are definitely ruining Hollywood.
So you agree? Okay.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's all about homogenization and indoctrination, and this is the reason why I don't own any Apple products. Oh. Because when you own an Apple phone, you now have to buy the Apple computer. You got to buy the Apple shit, et cetera, so forth. Yes. That's the same exact shit that the MCU is doing. In order for you to understand Doctor Strange 3, you got to watch.
You got to go watch the shitty one over here.
You got to watch Endgame. You got to watch 15 other movies to really understand that movie and appreciate it for its worth.
I was a huge superhero fan, but I just don't have the time and energy to keep up with it.
I still watch them all. I love them all, but because I'm a superhero fan. But I see why people say that. I absolutely agree that it's messing up Hollywood. Because a lot of it too, for me, I get so mad when they like announce reboots and sequels and all this stuff, because it's like there's so many people like me who just have like fresh ideas and fresh stuff like that. Like, sign me, Disney. I'll give you 5 brand new IPs tomorrow, and we can make all that shit be fire. You know what I'm saying? But instead, they want to make Star Wars 10. Right. Because
is that just marketing and business? It's easier to sell something familiar.
It goes back to the indoctrination.
And McDonald's, you have it's easier to have Happy Meals with than it would be with your movie.
It's risky to do new things. You know what I'm saying? It's comfortable to make Jurassic Park 7. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Because Jurassic Park 7, it's a well-known franchise.
People are raving about it. My mother-in-law told me the storyline, and it sounds like they just keep reworking the same storyline. This time they were already dinosaurs, but them crazy scientists got to meddling again, and now we got problems. Well, that was the way the whole movie started.
Right. And I mean, I'm also a fan of famous IP. As I have my Spider-Man script that went viral a couple of years ago that I wrote.
I've seen you mention it.
And a dream scenario would be for me to direct the Spider-Man movie. A very dream scenario would be for me to write and direct the Spider-Man movie, but I might just get offered to direct Spider-Man. Hell yeah, I'll do that shit.
While we're on the subject real quick, is there a reason why we keep seeing Batman and Spider-Man's origin story over and over again? Am I wrong? It feels that way. It feels like they keep telling us those stories over and over.
Origin story. So this is actually going back to psychology. It turns out that people enjoy stories when they know the story already, if that makes any sense. So you think about Batman's origin story. We know the story already. So we go there for that familiarity. If they decide to flip the script and just be like, well, Batman turned out to be a rapist or something like that.
Right. It got really dark during the Frank Miller years.
Mad because you see it all the time, right? When people change the story, like, oh, well, in the comics, he was this and that, right? Yeah. Because it's that familiarity. We get addicted to that. It's like a comfort for us. And so telling the origin stories over and over again is fine, I'm saying. But
I didn't particularly care for the latest Batman. I don't think you did either. Is that correct?
No.
Am I right? Was it too much of a Twilight? I felt like it was geared towards women, for lack of a better way to say it.
I'll get racial for a second. Okay. So with the Bond, I made a vow to myself that I will always cast a lead black actor in a film. It's because I'm black. It's that fucking simple. Why? Because we have a homogenization, that's my favorite word right now, I keep using it, of white savior superhero guys.
Yeah, sure.
But Batman, he gets angrier and angrier and whiter and richer every fucking movie.
Yeah.
Right? Remember Batman in the 60s when he was goofing around and dancing and
yeah.
pow symbols?
Yeah.
From there, every time they bring him out, he gets darker.
Right.
The next, I made a joke about this where I just posted a black square and I'm like, this is the screenshot from the next Batman movie. It's
that's how dark it is.
Just how dark it is, because that's what they do. And it's like, going back to the Spider-Man movie, if I had to direct the Spider-Man movie, I would ask to direct Miles Morales.
Okay.
I wouldn't, even though I love Peter Parker to death, if you're going to have me direct it, it has to be Miles Morales. Or we're making a black Spider-Man.
Right.
But it has to. That's just how I roll.
Right, I got
you know what I'm
it.
saying?
I got it.
And I think about that, even as I say that out loud, Ryan Coogler is another one of my favorite directors. He's on the same motif. But because of that, going back to the discussion with my son, right? You know, if they wanted me to direct Iron Man 3 or 4 or 5 with Robert Downey Jr.
As long as Falcon's hanging around or something, right?
Yeah, as long as there's black representation.
Right.
So, but if I'm writing and directing the film, absolutely it will always be a black lead.
That's cool. Is Jordan Peele really that good, or is he just fooling me?
I think Jordan Peele...
Or is it yet to be seen?
I think the funny thing about Jordan Peele is that he's always shown that he's been doing horror. Like, if you watch the Key and Peele skits, they've always been on this weird horror vibe, right? Mm-hmm. And now that he's the man, basically, he's really flexing in that lane.
And that's just from Get Out?
He did Us, too.
Okay, I needed to get up on that one.
Yeah, Us is fantastic, too.
I fell in love with Get Out. Now, it may be a problem that I laughed through a lot of it.
There's some funny moments.
I
guess it depends on what scenes you laughed at.
I laughed at weird parts. When this is a weird part, let me know. This may get me in trouble, but when they showed the scene and they had this huge yard, and the gentleman was cutting the yard with a non-electric push mower, the old-fashioned kind. To me, that struck me as weird and funny in a mean way, like funny in a dark way, that they would make him. Now, as you learn the story later on, you figure out that he just likes being young and an energetic body and exercise and all that. So it makes sense. But at first, you don't know all that.
Huh.
You just see them making him cut all this yard. You at first, you think he's just a black man that works for them, and he's cutting this whole yard. I mean, a huge acreage with just a push mower. That's a weird thing that I think I pick up. Several times I was giggling in the movie and people were looking at me funny.
I've only seen the movie twice, and now I think I have to go back and watch it and look for details like that, because I probably didn't pick up on that.
I because of my illustrious past, the dark or the untold side of the story always compels me. There's always, there's the story that's told, then there's the other side of the story. And a lot of times the other side of the story is more important to why things happened than the story we're told.
That's true.
And I love those untold stories that were motivators of the events that, for whatever reason, usually because they're uncomfortable facts, is why we haven't heard them. But I love hearing that other side of the story. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and you're a movie buff, so this kind of relates. But in my father's day, he was a much older man. My grandfather was born in 1899. My father was born in 1930. So in his day in Richmond, there was the Broad Street is the main street that runs through the city. Mm-hmm. And in his day, one side of Broad Street was called the bad side. That was, and Richmond has an illustrious history of Maggie Walker, the first black woman to own a bank. There were very successful black people in Richmond. You couldn't grow up in Richmond and think of black people in one way. There was too many. There was wealthy, poor. It was everything. So, but in his day, all the movie theaters were technically on the wrong side of Broad Street. So the wrong side of Broad Street was where all the black business was. The right side was where all the Tallheimers, the big department stores, all of that was. So it was weird how it was that segregated. And if you didn't know somebody lived from that time, you would never realize that about Richmond, And It's just race, unfortunately, has been a big motivator in my life in one way or the other, and I've always had to deal with it. And unfortunately for me, I probably need therapy. It's been imprinted on me, you know. Yeah. It's hard for me to have a conversation and not for it to get back to that somehow, you know.
That's fair. That's fair.
So I apologize for that in advance and in retrospect. Who's your favorite rapper in Tucson right now?
Marley B.
Marley B. That's
also,
good.
Shout out to Cash Lansky and Tommy Will.
Cash Lansky. I've heard of Cash Lansky. I've heard of Marley B. I need to do some investigation on the other gentlemen and their music. Favorite rapper in Phoenix currently? Not including yourself, of course, just to be polite.
Favorite rapper in Phoenix currently? Oh, man.
It's tough. This is one of those things where I start making lists and people get upset. But this is not a list. This is just your personal opinion.
So these are rappers who currently live and lay their head in Phoenix.
That
matters. That matters. It's a qualifier.
Okay, that's your qualifier.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sure.
All right, then. So Torrey Masters, I fuck with him heavy.
Okay.
I like Futuristic. He's dope.
Sure.
I like... Man, why'd you make me do this? I hate doing shit like this. Know who my favorite rapper is actually?
You've said enough. You don't have to keep going.
Megaran. Megaran, I think, is actually like the GOAT.
Why does Megaran not get more respect? Is it because of the type of hip-hop he does? He gets a lot of respect from me and a lot of people I talk to. I don't mean that he doesn't get respect, but I think he might get overlooked sometimes.
There is a massive stigma behind or against blurred culture. So blurred culture is black nerd. There's a massive stigma behind it.
Sure.
And he's like the leader of the blurreds. He's like blurred king. So because of that, that's why you don't see the people who should be supporting him.
Well, I'll try to get on that bandwagon. Was Tupac gay?
Was Tupac gay? Is that what you said?
The last day, there's been Queen Latifah has been quoted telling a story about Tupac coming to a gay bar she was at and taking his shirt off and dancing. There's always been people that have had questionable pictures of Tupac. People have skated around this issue for a while, and some people are trying to stand on it now. I'm just curious of your opinion of that.
It is Pride Month going on right now.
Yeah, I guess
You're
so.
going to ask me this question. I don't know if
would it matter if we all found out?
Absolutely not matter.
Right. That's the right answer, I believe.
No.
Some people I've seen have a problem.
I can see why you say that. I can definitely think of some people in my life that would be like, oh. But no, they did just grow the fuck up. Tupac was gay, it wouldn't matter.
It's no way it could diminish his contribution, right?
No, he's been dead for like 20 years, so.
Well, I mean, sometimes I think I got into an argument with I got into an online debate today, and and they're just like the black community is slow with the gay community sometimes. Is it?
What if it turned out that Elton John is not gay?
Then he's a sucker because he's been selling that and making money off that image, right?
But
falsely.
But with that said, that's the same argument with Tupac.
Well, Luther, I don't think of Luther Vandross as a sucker, and he may have been misleading us a bit over the years.
But also at the same time, music goes beyond the person who creates it. That's the power of storytelling.
Yes.
If I'm telling a story about something, that doesn't mean that's my story, right?
Right.
So that's why I love Nas. Nas is actually one of my favorite rappers of all time because of his power of storytelling and perspective, right? So it's like I could tell a story about a gay dude. Doesn't mean that I'm gay.
Right.
People will think that because
right.
they're stupid. But,
right.
Inference and separation of the viewpoints is how we have to move in this world.
Nas is your favorite rapper, so we don't have to actually live every story to tell a story.
No.
Because sometimes in rap we get caught up with that too. All my life there have been rappers that have told stories that obviously didn't live them, and that was fine. But for some reason, for some people, especially maybe in drill culture, it's become all too real.
So I definitely think there has to be perspective on that story, if that makes any sense. So if I'm so and so and I'm telling a story about a drug deal that went down in the hood and it wasn't my story, it was a homie's story, that's fine, right? If I am so and so making up a random ass story that is nowhere near my culture or my identity or anything like that, just for the sake of telling the story, that's actually kind of okay too, right? But as long as you're clear about that as an artist, right? I just like to tell stories. Are we getting mad at Stephen King for telling fucking The Stand, right? Like, He didn't live that life.
People seem like they got a little concerned when they found out that Spielberg did The Color Purple.
I thought that was common knowledge, though.
Apparently not. And now this was on the internet. This was on Facebook. So of course we get dumber on Facebook. Can anybody do anything with the current state of the internet?
No, the internet's the GOAT.
Really?
Yeah.
It seems like it's a huge source of negativity.
It's a huge source of everything.
Everything.
That's why it's the GOAT.
Good, cool.
It's everything, everywhere, all at once.
No, I actually saw.
See what I did there? That's full circle talk right there.
All right. Well, look, I don't want to. You've been so gracious to guest us with your time and talk to us. Before we go, this is the last question, I promise. Just tell us the difference between shopping a movie and shopping a music project. That's a big world, right? Big question.
Shopping a movie is far harder. Whoa.
It seems to me you get a little bit more time with the movie, right?
I'll ask a counter question. What are the goals when you say shopping? Money, or just like?
Well, I think if you have an independent music project, you have a release date, you spend money or time promoting it. Usually for most people, a month or two later, it's time to do another music project because that cycle is ended.
It's kind of the same thing. A lot of it for me.
Don't you get like a year? The only difference, as a novice, I'm speaking only, don't you all the film festivals that happen during a year, can't you submit that like all year to all the different film festivals?
Yeah, there's like deadlines and stuff, but yeah.
But so, 6 months from now, there might be another festival that you could enter in and maybe win. And or is that
typically once the movie's released on a worldwide platform, they don't accept it anymore.
Oh, so you kind of have to release it at the right time and get
so
in
once
where
it's
you can
out
get
on
in.
Amazon,
Okay.
I probably won't be able to submit to most festivals.
Oh, okay, I got you. Well, that's my ignorance.
But a lot of that too, though, it comes to like, what was I gonna say? They're basically the same thing. And when it comes down to, this is also the same thing with social media. It's all psychological breaks. So if you're watching me on my Facebook, right, and you see my posts, you see me talking all this shit, at some point in time, obviously, because I'm fucking here, you're going to reach out to me or click on me or look at my page or go to my website at some point in time. And that's you breaking that psychological barrier that is set up as you're doing whatever, right? So the same thing for movies. I want people to click on my movie and watch it, right? So I have to keep talking about, but this is basically what advertising is in a nutshell. I have to keep talking about my movie. They say that typically it's about 7 times before someone clicks on something. Mm-hmm. Same thing with marketing for your album, right? You have to push it in their face enough times to make them want to click on it. Unless you're Drake and you can surprise drop.
No. Very few can do that. Don't get these rappers started with thinking they can do surprise drops. A matter of fact, to most of y'all independent rappers, your drops are a surprise, but that's another issue for another day. JARON IKNER, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. It's been my pleasure. I've learned a lot. I hope our audience has learned a lot. I wish you continued success. I wish I had some of your focus or motivation or energy, whatever's going on in your head.
Smoke sativa weed.
It's a good thing. Sativa, does it give you a headache too much sometimes if you have a little bit? Never?
I try to smoke sativa exclusively.
Sativa can get me a little too excited when I mix it with the coffee. And sometimes it's not good for a headache. But
that's not
anyway,
good for the heart
that's
either,
just me.
so.
Oh, yeah. It gets me going.
You exercise?
Yeah, I exercise.
Then you're all right.
Okay. Take a leave.
No, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm getting older. I need
helps
to
with
take
the inflammation.
Okay. All right. Well, I need
old
to,
too, man.
I need to protect my heart. Now, I appreciate you looking out for my wife will as well. Mr. IKNER, thank you so much for coming in. This has been AZMT 3.0 ArizonaMixtapes.com. The Mission with Swerve 36 as special guest tonight. I can't say it enough. So much hard work, so much dedication, so much to celebrate. The Bond out now. And give us your website one more time where it's available right now.
You can get the Bond at thebondmovie.com or at JaronIKNER.com.
Those two websites until about a month or two from now, it will be available next week. Available on Amazon Prime.
The first
next week. We were having a conversation before you got here,
I think,
and talking about movies, and I think you'll get a big bump when it gets to Amazon Prime because people like easy.
Oh yeah, I know. I've had at least 20 people be like, well, I'm just going to wait for it to go on Amazon Prime. I'm like, whatever, dude. It's fine.
Support can be lazy sometimes, but it's support.
I understand it because we're putting it on a very obscure way. It's like the Bandcamp.
Well, we're all spoiled at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I lived through the years where you didn't know where the new music was going to be, and now we all know where everything's going to be, and It's right on their phone every minute. So we're a little spoiled. If you want to go get that good indie flavor, if you want to go get that good indie movie and music making, you can go find JARON, and a lot of other people out there if you just do a little work, where it's not hand service to you. So thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. So congratulations to you and your lovely queen. I hope you bring many more projects into the world. And it's been my pleasure to talk with you. I think I've got an interesting perspective and look into your world.
Thank you.
It's a big world to look into. I feel like we could talk some more, but tonight it's over. Thank you so much to JARON IKNER for coming in to the mission.
Much.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'll turn all this shit on. All right, we're off of there.